No.
We'll see at the top of the letter, if we can just scroll down a bit. There's a reference there, SD:SSB. Did you know what that represented?
No.
Whether that was a particular individual?
No.
Did it concern you at all that the letter was apparently written anonymously?
I didn't really probably think about that. Given my knowledge of things that were outside the church then, I just saw the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society and figured it was them, their organisation.
Those are my questions, Your Honour.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Yes, Your Honour.
Anyone else? Who should go first?
Probably me in this occasion.
That's right.
Thank you. BCG, my name is Coyne. I'm representing Dino Ali, Kevin Baldich, Ron DeRoy, and Alan Pencheth, and some other people that you don't know. So, I just want to ask you only a couple of questions, but you made your complaint to the elders around June 1989. Is that right?
I don't recall exactly when I made it.
My friend will correct me if I've got that wrong. But after you made your complaint to the elders, did they arrange alternate accommodation for you in the congregation?
Initially, I stayed at home with my mother. My father came back she'd invite him in and come back and knock me around.
Yes.
Then once the committee meetings had finished, my sister was counselled and she decided to move back into our house. And I was pretty badly treated by her and my mother at that stage. Even to the point where I couldn't access my bedroom. I'd have to get in through an outside window. And then I remember going to Kevin Bowditch in the walkway of the Kingdom Hall, and I said to him, I can't live here anymore. I don't want to be in the house with my mother.
And they arranged accommodation for you within the congregation, is that right?
Kevin Bowditch arranged for me to stay with Kerry and Mark Grigor. I didn't really know them very well, and I stayed at their house for a while, helped them look after their children. And
you were then married around November 1989.
Yes, that's correct.
At the time of your marriage, you were living with the Bowditch family?
Yes.
How long did you live with the Bowditch family?
I don't remember the exact time, but I know that I'd stayed there just before I got married.
Yes. And the Bowditch family assisted you with planning for the wedding?
Planning as in?
Paying?
No, they did not pay for it.
Just the general planning for the wedding in relation to the ceremony?
Yeah, I remember Lynn Bowditch made my little sister's, I bought the fabric and she said she would make their little flower girl dresses.
Yes. And did Kevin Bowditch give you away at your wedding?
Yes, he did. I asked him to.
Okay. After you were married, you moved to Townsville. Is that right?
Are you talking about a particular time? Yeah, I did move to Townsville, yeah.
Yes. So shortly after that?
Oh, no. I had 2 children first and then I moved to
Then
Townsville.
you moved to Townsville. When you were in Townsville, were you still with the Jehovah's Witness faith?
Yes.
Okay. Did Ron DeRoy and his family come and stay with you a number of times whilst you were up there?
No, I don't recall him staying. I do remember a photo with them, so they must have visited at one point. But I don't recall him staying with us.
Just to be more specific, during the conventions that were held in Townsville. Did they ever stay with you during that?
I can't recall, to be honest. Living in Cairns, who left the family home somewhere in Cairns, yeah.
And was he returning during that period of time to your family home?
Yes.
And can you just give a brief explanation of what was going on at that time between your parents?
My parents were separating, and my father had wanted to leave my mother for another woman in the congregation that was married. And he was matching up my older sister with the woman's husband.
But he was coming home to your place during that,
yes,
regularly,
yes.
And you were there.
Yes.
And that was during that committee process and around
Yes.
that period of time.
Yes.
So at that stage, you were having to deal with him outside the committee process in your own home.
Yes.
Would you consider yourself to be a devout at that time that you were abused? Would you consider yourself to have been a devout Jehovah's Witness?
Oh, yes, very.
So the beliefs were very strong beliefs that you held,
Yes.
and throughout the whole period of time that you were a Jehovah's Witness, you felt very strong in your commitment to Jehovah.
Yes, certainly, yes.
Are you able to just assist, perhaps to explain in your own words some of the terms that you've used in the course of your statement? One is a term you've used on a number of occasions, reproach on Jehovah's name. Could you please explain to the Commission, what does reproach on Jehovah's name mean?
It would mean talking or telling anybody that was classified as, or anybody outside the church, about negative things that happened within the congregation, meetings, or with my father, for example. Even, couldn't disclose that. We were pretty much counselled from the platform to keep things within the organisation.
So if you did, if I could say do that, a reproach on Jehovah's name, what did you think the outcome would be? Or what would happen to you?
That not only would you get into trouble by the elders and the congregation disfellowshipped, Jehovah would kill you, definitely.
So when you say Jehovah would kill you, what do you mean? What is your understanding of what would happen? What was your understanding at that time? Sorry, I'll withdraw that. What was your belief at that time about Jehovah killing you?
Well, the Jehovah's Witnesses' foundational belief was that Armageddon was coming, and it was so close that people weren't encouraged to pursue careers, buy houses, anything like that, that they should devote all their time to preaching. So in that sense, it was like it was going to happen in the next year, that Armageddon was going to come and it was like Judgment Day and you'd be killed if you weren't in the Jehovah's Witness church.
So you wouldn't be saved as,
Oh, no.
as along with the other Jehovah's Witnesses?
No, yes.
And was that a powerful belief?
Oh, yes.
And just in relation to that, if you were defellowshipped, what do you think Jehovah would do to you?
He'd kill you.
So it's the same sort of process?
Same thing, yes.
During the time that you were in the committee, at the committee hearings, I just want to go back to your statement. You missed a line in your statement, but it was the case, wasn't it, that during that committee meeting, your father was brought into the room?
Yes.
And he was at one of those meetings and sat at the end of the other end of the table?
Yes.
How did you feel sitting in that room with the three elders and your father?
I felt extremely uncomfortable talking to the men that were his friends. He's, being his age. And I remember, I have never been in my entire life so petrified and scared of my father and his threats and the process.
And what was it that made you talked about your father's threats, but was there anything else that made you feel threatened or petrified?
He was stalking me, and he had that ability to follow through with his threats.
When you were coming back to the committee meeting, when you were in the room, what can you say to the Commission about the tone of the questioning to you?
The tone of the questioning from the elders was almost accusatory in the sense that, that I was to blame for what happened, or whether I enjoyed it or it was my fault. And it was almost like they were insulted that I would even speak against my father, who was a brother anointed by Holy Spirit. And I also felt like they were taking delight, I suppose, in asking the same questions over and over again. I had all different people asking me questions, and my father could say whatever he liked to me. It was very threatening, very scary.
What did you think that they were doing by asking you questions over and over again?
I felt like they were trying to test me, to see if I was lying, whether there were any inconsistencies in my story. And I also felt like I was reliving it all, and they were having fun with that.
When you said in your statement, or you deleted a line from your statement earlier today about having gone to a psychologist, a worldly psychologist. First, I just want to ask you about what your understanding is of a worldly person. What was the idea in your mind about what a worldly person was?
My belief was probably based on the way the Jehovah's Witnesses spoke about worldly people. I actually now think it's quite a derogatory term, and they use it in a derogatory sense, like the worldly people don't have any morals. They're lower than the Jehovah's Witnesses because they seem to hold themselves up having the high moral ground in every part of their lives.
During that period of, say, 1988 and 1989, did you have any friends other than in the Jehovah's Witness congregation?
No,
You went to school, but did you ever associate with any of those, people that you went to school with outside of school?
never allowed to associate with them outside.
Were you allowed to engage in extracurricular activities at the school?
Definitely not.
And the sex education, that was not permitted?
Yeah, definitely not.
And that was, and how was that, that was done, wasn't it, by way of a note that was sent to the school that you're not participating in certain classes?
My parents were directed by the publications, elders, meetings, to write to the school and write a note that we couldn't participate in sex education classes, birthdays, Christmas, Easter.
At the time, so outside of the Jehovah's Witness congregation, was there anybody that you believed that you could go and talk to?
No.
In terms of seeing seeing any counsellor or psychologist or psychiatrist, when was you have seen a psychologist?
Yes.
When was the first time you went to see or had any engagement with a psychologist?
It wouldn't have been long after I got married, and it was when I had attempted suicide, took an overdose, and I was put into hospital.
And
And-
how was...
A psychologist came in then to talk to me, but he was a male, so I wouldn't speak to him.
So you didn't have any counselling at that stage?
No.
When did you or did you ultimately get some counselling?
I eventually, the feelings of suicide just kept getting worse. They're always there. And given that I had a little son to look after, even though that was a positive for me, it was very hard to fight those feelings, and my nightmares were pretty bad. Sleep, and I went to go see a doctor.
And when was that ultimately?
That would have been after my first son was born, probably about a year and a half. And I think she prescribed me some medication because I didn't want to talk to any males.
When your father came back into the Mariba congregation, you continued to live there for some years after
Yes.
that.
Yes.
And how did you feel having him in the congregation?
I don't think he came back to live, but he came back when not long after his reinstatement was announced, and I remember him coming to the Kingdom Hall, and I could hear all the brothers and sisters coming up because he was standing quite close to me to, I felt, intimidate me. I was very scared, shaking, and I remember all the brothers and sisters that knew what he'd done shaking his hand and saying, "Congratulations, welcome back, good on you." And I just felt pretty worthless because he didn't even apologise.
Did you feel? Did you ever receive an apology from your father?
No.
Did you ever receive? Well, you've read some of these statements of some of the elders that were involved in the committee meetings, and
Yes.
they have spoken about having provided support to you. What can you say about that?
I am actually probably really insulted that all this time, they have believed that they have supported me. And I think, from my experience, dealing with the different systems, the religious system and secular system or the legal system. The support, I can compare the support and the processes. So, and I think it would probably hold a bit of weight to those particular elders, Dino, Kevin, Ron, Vincent O'Toole and the Watchtower Society, that their processes aren't processes. There are no processes. There's no protection at all. And the way that they dealt with is very, very traumatic and very difficult to do. And on the other hand, the people that were supposed to be worldly and scary were complete strangers to me, particularly the first detective that I spoke to, Natalie Bennett. And even the people here at the Royal Commission, the team here, they're complete strangers, and I have had more support, acknowledgement and acceptance from complete strangers than I have ever had from anyone in the congregation.
And when you talked about the officer, Natalie Bennett, the officer that was the officer in charge of your case against your father, or the case against your father, I should say. Now, you had a good relationship with her? You trusted her?
Yes.
And
Yeah, Dr. Jason Morrison, theologist again. I just want to say thank you for watching the videos, and I hope you got plenty of self-rediscovery and freedom out of it. If you watched it on YouTube, please share or like, maybe even comment. If you watched it on Facebook, like, comment, share. But most of all, get out and live. This isn't a rehearsal. You've got a one-off life. Don't let your loyalty and your faithfulness blind you to the life that you should be experiencing. Till the next video, thank you for watching, and bye for now.